Hello, Nancy. Ready, Jay? Sunday, next Sunday. Yes, correct. Of course, yeah, here. Shabbat Sholom, everyone. Welcome. It's good to see you. Welcome back, everybody. It's like an old-time reunion. We're going to begin our service on page 10 with Yedid Nefesh. Page 10.
Yedid Nefesh Avarachaman Mishohavdan Eretzonak Yarutz Avdak Kemo Ayah Ishtachaveh Muladarak Ki Yeralo Yedidutak Minofet Suv Vechotam Igalena Ufros Aviv Alai Etzukan Shelomah Ta'ir Eretz Mikodach Nahira V'nismecha Bach Maherahu Ibamoed V'honeni Ki Yemei Olam Yaradai lai 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 Yaradai lai 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 Yaradai lai 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 Yaradai lai 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 Yaradai lai 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 Yaradai lai 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 Yaradai lai 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 Yaradai lai 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 Yaradai lai 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 Yaradai lai 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 Yaradai lai 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 Yaradai lai 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 lai.
We continue together on page 11, Lechu Neranena.
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai.
Lechu neranena,
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Naria, לצור אישנו, נגמה פנה בתודה. נריה, לצור אישנו, בזמירו נריה לו.
לכו נרננה,
לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה אדוני. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה אדוני. Bottom of page 12.
40 שנה חוט בדור, ואומרם תוהה לבבהם, והם לא ידעו דרכי, אשר נשבעתי ואפי, אם יבואון
אל מנוחתי.
שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בזרו מיום ליום ישועתו.
Continue on page 14, Yismechu Hashamayim.
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים,
ותגל הארץ.
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. יירם הים,
יירם הים, יירם הים ומלואו, יירם הים, יירם הים, יירם הים ומלואו.
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים,
ישמחו השמיים,
ותגל הארץ.
יירם הים, יירם הים,
יירם הים ומלואו,
יירם הים,
יירם הים, יירם הים ומלואו. We continue praying on page 18, Zamru Ladonai. Third line from the top in the Hebrew, second line from the top in the phonetics.
Samru Ladonai Bechinor, Bechinor Vekol Zimra, Bechatzotrot Vekol Shofar.
Ariu lifnei HaMelech Adonai.
Samru Ladonai Bechinor, Bechinor Vekol Zimra, Bechatzotrot Vekol Shofar.
Ariu lifnei HaMelech Adonai.
Hiram hayam umelo, tevel veyoshvei ba. Neharot imcha uchav yachad, harim yiraneinu. Lifnei Adonai kiva, nishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel b'tzedek, ve'amim b'meisharim. Hiram hayam umelo, tevel veyoshvei ba. Neharot imcha uchav yachad, harim yiraneinu.
Page 20, Romemu.
Nai, 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 yai, nai, 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 yai, nai, 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 lai, 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 yai, nai, nai, yai, nai, 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 yai, nai, 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 nai. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu.
Let us please rise, page 21, Mizmor LeDavid.
Mizmor LeDavid, Havu l'Adonai b'nelim, Havu l'Adonai Kol Adonai Ha'amayim Rakavot Hirim Adonai Almayim Ravim Kol Adonai Bakoach Kol Adonai Behadar Kol Adonai Shover Arazim Vayashaber Adonai Et Arzei Havanon Vayakidem Kemo Egel Lebanon Besión Kemo Ben Remim Kemo Ben Remim Ay Kol Adonai Kol Tevotesh Kol Adonai Yakil Midbar Yakil Adonai Midbar Kadesh Kol Adonai Kol Hayalot Vayechesof Yearot Uvechalo Kulo Kulo Merkavot Ay Adonai Lama Yashaba Yeshev Adonai Melech Leolam Adonai Hos Ve'amoited Adonai Yevareg et Amo Vashalom Lai 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 Ay Lai 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 Ya Lai 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 Ya Lai Lai Lai
Please be seated. We continue together on page 22, Ana Bekoach.
Almighty, if you would, guard as the apple of your eye those who seek your unity. Listen to our pleas, hear our cries, knowing the hidden depths within us. Ana Bekoach.
Ana Bekoach Bekoach Gedulat Yemincha Yemincha Tatit Serura Kaberinat Amcha Sagvenu Tarenu Nora Ana Bekoach Bekoach Gedulat Yemincha Yemincha Tatit Serura Kaberinat Amcha Sagvenu Tarenu Nora Ana Bekoach Gedulat Yemincha Tatit Serura Kaberinat Amecha Rinat Amecha Sagvenu Tarenu Nora Nagivor Dorshe Yechucha Kebavad Shomrem Barchem Tarem Rachamem Tzidkatecha Tamid Golem Ana Bekoach Gedulat Yemincha Tatit Serura Kaberinat Amecha Rinat Amecha Sagvenu Tarenu Nora Nai Nai Lai 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 Nai Nai Lai 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 Nai Nai Lai 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 Nai Nai Lai Lai Baba Nai 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 Lai Lai Nai Nai Lai 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 Nai Nai Lai Lai Nai Nai Lai Lai
Lechado D, page 23.
nay, 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 nay. 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 Nay, 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 nay. Nay, la, 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 la. Nay, 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 nay. Nay, 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 nay. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekavela. Shamor v'zachor b'diborecha hishmi'anu el hamiluchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad shemo tiferet ve'elitila lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekavela nigrat Shabbat lechu v'necha ki mekor haverach merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh v'machshavat chila lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekavela mikdash melech עיר מלוכה קומיצי, מתוך אפיך הרב לשבת בעמק אביך, והוא יחמור עלייך חמלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. הנערי מעפר קומי, נשי בגדי, תפארתך מעל יד ישי, והלך קרבה נפשי קהלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי כי באורך, קומי אורי אורי אורי, שיר דברי כבוד אדוני, עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לא תבושי ולא תקלמי, מה תשתוכחי ומחתמי בת יחסו. אני העמי ונפנתה עיר עתידה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. והיו לשמשה שעושייך ורחקו כל מבלייך, יסיס עלייך אלוהיך כמסחוס חתן, חתן על כלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי על יד איש. בין הפרצי ונשמחה ונגילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום ותרבלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה תוך אמונה. עם סגולה בואי כלה, שבת מלכתה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated. Page 27, Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat.
מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר יום השבת. מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר יום השבת. טוב טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב 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 להודות לאדוני, טוב טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב טוב להודות לאדוני, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, ואמונתך בלילות. טוב טוב להודות לאדוני, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, ואמונתך בלילות. טוב טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב טוב להודות לאדוני.
Let us please turn to page 29, Adonai Malach.
Adonai Malach Lavish, Lavish, Adonai Ozit Azar, Aftikon, Tevel Baltimot, Aftikon, Tevel Baltimot, Nahon Kisecha Meaz, Me'olam Ata, Naseu Neharot Adonai, Naseu Neharot Kolam, Yiseu Neharot Koyam, Mikolot Maim Rabim, Adirim Mishpereyam, Adir Bamarom Adonai, Adir Bamarom Adonai, Elotecha Nemnu Mehon, Leveitcha Nava Kodesh, Adonai Leorech Yamim, Adonai Leorech Yamim, Mikolot Maim Rabim, Adirim Mishpereyam, Adir Bamarom Adonai, Adir Bamarom Adonai.
I ask us to please rise as we turn to page 39b for the Baruch Hu, the call to worship.
Nai 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 ya nai 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 ya nai 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 ya nai 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 ya nai 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 nai. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Nai nai la 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 nai nai la 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 ya nai 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 ya nai 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 na 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 nai 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 na 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 nai nai ya nai 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 ya nai. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uven laila. Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Adonai Tzevaot Shemo. אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבים.
אהבת עולם, page 40.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו ושובנו וקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו באורך ימינו באורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך את תסר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. ועם שמוע ויאמר אדוני משה לאמור דבר בני ישראל ואמרת להם. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We continue on page 44. Who is like you, Adonai? Mi chamocha.
Nay 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 nay. Nay 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 מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושי פלא, נורא תהילות עושי פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה. זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ניי 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 ניי
השכיבנו, page 45.
Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Vehamidenu Malkeinu Lechaim Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Vehamidenu Malkeinu Lechaim Ushmor Tzeitenu Uvoenu Lechaim Ushalom Me'ata ve'ad olam Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Vehamidenu Malkeinu Lechaim Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Vehamidenu Malkeinu Lechaim
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Vehamidenu
Eloheinu Leshalom Vehamidenu
Eloheinu Leshalom Vehamidenu
Eloheinu Leshalom.
You can end it. You gave up. Oh.
Last week it was perfect, okay?
Yeah, you gave up. It's all right.
After all these years, I mean, it's getting much better. 20 years ago, I couldn't even do the first,
Right. No, it's good. We're getting there.
You're recognizing that it's getting better.
We're getting there.
Thank you, DJ. It's very, very nice coming from you.
I don't know which melody to do because I'm stuck in the middle.
You just do whatever you want. You can do a different one.
Just do a whole different.
Please rise, Vishamrus, page 46.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך ועל עולם מעלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר וירמה וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שם מלך קדושה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה
תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעולמה
ואמרו
Amen. We continue praying the Amidah beginning on page 47. Will please remain standing. If you have finished praying the Amidah, please be seated. We're going to continue on page 51 with Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל השעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Oseh Shalom is on page 52.
Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imeru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imeru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imeru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imeru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imeru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imeru Amen.
Kaddish Shalem, page 54.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Yikra v'yikra shemei Rabba ve'amadi v'rakirutei ve'amlik malchutei v'chayechoni v'mechoni v'chaydecho ve'Yisrael bagala u'vizman kari v'imiru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'alam u'le'al me'amaya.
Yitbarach.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yinaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kedusha v'richu le'elam min kol brakata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata d'amiran me'alma v'imru. Amen. Titka batzlot tahona v'utahona kol Yisrael kol dama v'hona v'shamaya v'imru. Amen. Yehi shalom aravim shamaya v'chahim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imeru Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Almost Hag Sameach. It's not the Hag yet. We're almost there. It's getting pretty close, and if you don't believe me, go to the Kosher Smiths in Sun City. You should wear a suit of armor if you go in there. I needed egg matzah. I forgot it. I walked in there. There was one box left. It was like it was shining, like glowing. And I go to get it, and there were two Jewish grandmothers in front of me. I'm 6'3". I was not even gonna go near that. I was kind of terrified of them. But honestly, tis the season of Pesach, and I want to tell you a story that my beloved teacher and my rabbi, Rabbi Elliot Dorff, he used to tell this same story every year around Pesach. He recounted how when he was a young man, he would come home as his wife was preparing their house for Passover. She would be busy in the kitchen, boiling water, koshering dishes, lining the countertops with aluminum foil. And for Rabbi Dorff, the man who would eventually become the conservative movement's leading expert on Jewish law, halacha, this was simply too much for him. And he said, honey, you really don't have to do all of this. If you like, I can show you in the Shulchan Aruch. I could show you in other various rabbinic codes how all of this preparation that you're doing is rather unnecessary, he told her. She looked at him for a brief moment before saying, Elliot, get out of here, you're trafing up my kitchen. And it is then that I learned that while Rabbi Dorff might be an authority on halacha, he certainly was not the authority in the kitchen that year. So we all know that the Torah tells us to refrain from eating leavened bread. This is usually derived from the word chametz, because our ancestors didn't have time to prepare bread properly with yeast during their quick departure from Egypt. Now, if I'm being honest, this never really made sense to me. How long does it take to add yeast to a bread mixture? I can't seem to think it would take too long, but I digress. Because elsewhere in the Torah, we're told that we can't even have chametz in our home during Passover, and that eating it is cause for kerite, expulsion from the Jewish people. It says in the book of Shemot, no leaven shall be found in your house for 7 days. For whoever eats what is leavened, chametz, that person shall be cut off from the community of Israel, whether he or she is a stranger or a citizen of that country. And then later we hear that during Pesach, we have to eat matzah. We're commanded to eat matzah. Usually this is translated as unleavened bread. But what constitutes chametz and what constitutes matzah? Well, I guess that depends on who you ask. But let's begin. What kind of bread did Jews eat in the 13th century BCE while they were enslaved in Egypt? If you're thinking they had these fancy French loaves of bread or Wonder Bread that we have nowadays, that's right out. What kind of bread did they actually eat? I had to investigate this. Turns out in 2015, a team of Israeli archaeologists tried to recreate the bread that Jews in antiquity ate. So what they did is they got some clay and they made a clay oven known as a tanur, and they got bread ingredients from every Bible verse in the Tanakh that listed what kind of bread people would have eaten. So they made a dough using flour, water, and yeast, and a tiny bit of sugar, although they could have used honey to sweeten it. And after the dough had risen and they kneaded it, it was divided into smaller balls and left to rise a bit further. And they lit a fire in this clay oven, this tanur, using straw and pine cones, just like they would have done thousands of years ago. And once the oven was hot enough, they put the balls of dough in there, and they were flattened into small loaves that they slapped inside the walls of this clay oven. And so the loaves only needed a few minutes to bake, after which they very carefully took the bread out. And what did the bread look like? Well, I took a look at the picture. It kind of looked like if you would have crossed a pita with like a biscuit you would get in the deep south. Not super yeasty like a French loaf, something kind of like that. This is what the Torah does not want us to eat during Pesach. And this, other yeasty breads, we're not supposed to do that. So if that is what biblical chametz is, what is matzah? Well, if you're thinking of the perforated and square matzah that comes in a box labeled Menashevitz, that is also right out. If we're going by what the Torah says, then really matzah is the same bread that the archaeologists made, just without yeast. So, that same team of Israeli archaeologists made the same bread they made earlier, except this time they didn't add the yeast. And what did this matzah look like that they made? Well, it looked pretty darn similar to the bread that they made, except it looked more like a tortilla, I would say. You can actually buy, I found this off, what is called soft matzah. Look it up after Shabbat, softmatzah.com. It looks almost identical to a tortilla, except like a little bit thicker. and it's 100% kosher. All it is water, flour, and heat. So if we know what the Torah is talking about when it refers to chametz, and if we know what the Torah is talking about when it refers to matzah, how did we get so far down the rabbit hole of not eating rice during Pesach? How did we get to the point of kosher for Passover Coca-Cola? And how in the world did we get to the point of, and I'm not kidding, this is a real thing, kosher for Passover toilet paper? Well, I will blame the usual culprits in our tradition who are always making things more difficult than they need to be, rabbis. It's really all our fault. The rabbis in medieval times saw people eating rice and corn, and maybe they said, "Get out of here, you're trafing up our kitchen." But in all seriousness, eating kitniot on Pesach, these are things like rice, legumes, beans. This is a purely Ashkenazic rabbinic tradition, because supposedly in antiquity, it was possible for flour to be stored in or near bags with various types of these legumes, beans, etc. And therefore, some rabbis outlawed them entirely. But seriously, corn syrup is not what the Torah is referring to when it talks about chametz. Apparently, I did some research on this, some toilet paper companies use a corn derivative as glue when they adhere the toilet paper to the toilet paper tube. Hence, the supposed kosher for Passover toilet paper. Trust me, this is definitely not the chametz that the Torah is referring to. I've seen pictures of people putting aluminum foil all over their counters, their tables. I even saw somebody's couch covered in aluminum foil, lest a particle of yeasty bread might be exposed somewhere. Several years ago, a very famous photo emerged of a Hasidic Jewish man on an airplane during Pesach, in which he had fully covered himself in a clear plastic tarp, only exposing a small hole in which he could breathe out of. He claimed he was worried about pretzel snacks on the plane contaminating his clothing with chametz. Now, please don't think that I am bashing the people who participate in these severe Passover stringencies. This is very important that you understand. I'm not attacking these people. I'm not saying what they're doing is stupid. I'm not saying what they're doing is bad. I'm simply saying that I think it's unnecessary. If, however, these practices bring them a special kavanah or intention for the holiday, if it brings them closer to God or to Jewish tradition, then I think it's beautiful and I think it's wonderful and they should continue to do it. I want to end by saying that while I'm not going to encourage people to eat chametz during Pesach, I don't think that that's the most important mitzvah of our holiday. For me, I think the most important mitzvah comes from the Mishnah, and it appears in our Haggadah as well. It says, "In each and every generation, a person must view themselves as though they personally left Egypt. As it is stated," and this is quoted from the Torah, "And you shall tell your children on that day, saying, it is because of this which Adonai did for me when I came forth out of Egypt." Really what this means, I think, is that we are to recognize that God took an active role in our ancestors' lives and intervened. And I can think about the things that God has done for me and for my family and for our community here at CBS. And because of those things, those beautiful blessings, it's easy for me not to eat chametz for a week. Well, it might not be easy, but I can still do it. I think acknowledging that I personally have had hardships, maybe my own version of Egypt, acknowledging that and acknowledging that God helped me out of those situations, I think that is more important to me than tinfoil on my countertops or on my sofa. This Passover, I want to encourage you to do what brings you meaningful connections with our Passover traditions, or God, or even yourself. whether it be boiling Passover Coke, even Passover toilet paper, or maybe none of the above. However, you should see yourself as redeemed. Do that. Just don't trafe up your kitchen. Chag Pesach Sameach. Oh no.
You just reminded me of a story. When I was 9 years old, growing up in Mexico, I went to a school where there were not that many Jewish kids, but the majority of the Jewish kids that went to my school were all Syrian. So, when I was about 9, my friend Johnny Daba invited me to his house during Passover, and we did our homework, and then they gave us dinner. And lo and behold, there were quesadillas, with corn tortillas. And I devoured them, right? I go home and I said to my parents, I was in tears. You've lied to me. You've been lying to me. We can eat tortillas. We don't need to do all of this. We can eat tortillas. My parents were looking at me like, calm down. We have to explain to you about Sephardic Jews, right? It was one of those days, right, when I learned that there were other Jews that did other things and that it was okay. But in my house, no corn tortillas. Yeah. Till this very day. Yeah. I've been trying to get corn tortillas in my house. Liz won't let them through the door. It's like, she says, I intellectually agree. We could eat the corn, not a problem. No, they're not coming in the house. Not coming in the house. Yeah. So I keep trying. Maybe 1 year she'll give up. Okay. Anyway, let us please rise. We're going to continue with Shalom Aleichem on page 73.
Shalom Aleichem, Malchei Hashare, Malchei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malchei Hashalom, Malchei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchuni L'Shalom, Malchei Hashalom, Malchei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu, Tzeitkhem L'Shalom, Malchei Hashalom, Malchei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Let us please remain standing. We're going to continue with Kiddush, which we can find on page 54. I would like to invite all the children that are with us this evening to please come up to the bima for Kiddush. I think that's David. Henry, you can come up. Henry, come on. You're not a child anymore? May I remind you, you're not a man until your bar mitzvah. That very day. Before that, you're a child. Just kidding. Page 55.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pori hagafe.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon chinkilanu, zikaron lema'aseh Bereshit, ki hu yom techila lamikra'e kodesh, זכר ליציאת מצרים, קיבלנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת, מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון, הנחתנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. So apparently, here's the rest of the egg matzah from Smith's. I'm happy you survived that story, Jonathan. Yeah.
Just eat a
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ. And so it begins.
No, thank you.
Right? What do we do now?
Aleinu is on page 56.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו ככם, וגורלנו ככל המעונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שנתי שמיים ועושה הארץ ושמיים. על כן נקבל לך אלוהינו לבנו זכה. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Please be seated. On page 173, we have an opportunity to say a prayer for healing for members in our community, but really for everyone all over the world who's suffering from physical illness. Misha Barak on page 173, left-hand side.
Misha Barak Avotenu מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us sing Amen.
The following is a list of members of our congregation we remember with a lot of love on the Yorksides: Alfred Barkan, Carol Berg, Sarah Bernstein, Linda Boruch, Patricia Campbell, Anthony Carter, Harry Drake, Cheryl Fruchter Hintz, Albert Furman, Alan Garber, Sarah Gilbert, Dorothy Glitcher, Charlotte Hirsch, Haley Holnick, Norman Greenberg, Morris Heisen, Walter Jacobs, Jason Katz, Anna Levine, Francis Lipkin, Stanley Lowe, Jay Markowicz, Bernard O'Reiner, Samuel Pakin, Alexander Rosef, Helen Rosenberg, Arlene Rubinstein, Charles Salton, and Anne Snofsky. Mourners and those who serve in Yorkside, please rise for the Mourners Kaddish, page 58.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן.
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה,
וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
עושה שלום ממרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
Amen.
אמן.
Let us please be seated. I'd like to call upon Jared Finkelstein, President of our congregation, for announcements.
Shabbat Shalom. It's wonderful to see people here this evening, some of whom I haven't seen for a year or so welcome back. Those of you who are, can you not hear me? Is that better? Those of you who are, still participating via Zoom and Facebook, I look forward to welcoming you back to our sanctuary as well. Join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for our Shabbat morning services, also here in person and online. This Sunday at 7 p.m. we'll be having our second Seder in the large social hall. I think we're also streaming it, right? So those of you who aren't here in person, because we did fill up, you can see the service or the Seder online. So I encourage you to do that. We have a lot of other things going on. On April 7th at 7 p.m., there'll be a virtual community-wide Yom HaShoah commemoration. You need to RSVP through Jewish Nevada. And on April 8th, we will be having the official ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Sperling Kronberg Mack Holocaust Resource Center that TBS is hosting. The TBS Men's Club will be having their second annual High Roller Poker Tournament on Sunday the 11th at the Cantonese Wine Bar. So you can check your emails for that. The first one was a great success and a lot of fun, so please do that. We also have registration for the Early Childhood Center going on, as well as summer camp. And also with the continued creativity of our clergy, on April 11th at 7:30 p.m. there will be a hula hoop Havdalah, where you can enjoy a hula hoop show outside, Havdalah, pizza, and lots of fun. So you can stay in your car and watch it, or in person. Masks are required. I also want to wish everyone a very happy Passover. I know whether you're doing it via Zoom, in person, or a combination, I know people have some Zoom fatigue. In doing it for my family, I found one version that's the 15-second Seder. I settled upon, actually, I found a Haggadah that is the 30-minute Seder. I figured that was the attention span of, I think, my relatives back east when we do the Seder. But again, I hope everyone has a very meaningful Seder and enjoying your family, whether locally or by distant. And next year, hopefully, we can celebrate as we have traditionally, face-to-face, and enjoying each other's company and good humor. Shabbat Shalom.
We can't mention the 30-minute Seder out loud, Jared, because my children are going to go to your Seder. They're going to abandon me. You can't go around saying that.
But it's a real Haggadah.
Well, I'm not doubting it, but I keep telling them every year, you have to sit down and you have to do the entire thing. They're like, well, it's not our fault that you're a rabbi. We didn't choose this. Every year, for the last 20 years, I've been hearing the same thing. So
I'll send you the 50.
send me the link. Maybe they'll join you and we'll solve a problem for everybody.
We're all going to Jersey.
We're going to conclude our service on page 211 with Adon Olam, followed by our special blessing.
אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת מסע, לסוקו, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, ואחרי תתלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה, והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד, ואין שני, להמשילו להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז ועם ישראל. והוא אלי וחי גואלי, בצור חבלי ובצרה. והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנקוסי ביום אקרא. בידו אבקיד רוחי, והייתי שם ואעירה. ועם רוחי גביעתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא. נאי נאי נאי, נאי נאי נאי, נאי 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 נאי
Jared just reminded me to remind you that we have an Oneg Shabbat. We have an Oneg in the large social hall. It's a reduced Oneg. You know, we have individually wrapped snacks and coffee and water and a lot of sanitizer. And also reminding you to sit in a table with people that you know, people that are like kind of like in your bubble, or people that you know are already vaccinated from 2 vaccines and over the 2 weeks of the period of waiting, so that we can actually enjoy and celebrate our Oneg Shabbat without any problems. And at this time, I'd like to ask you to please come together. Let us embrace one another. Again, embrace the people that you know are safe to embrace. I mean, I have no other way of saying this. And let us enjoy this beautiful blessing of light and joy of Shabbat.
יבורכך אדוני וישמרך, יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויקונך, יישא אדוני פניו אליך, יעשה לך שלום. ניי 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 ניי
אדוני יוס למו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום, שבת שלום ומבורך.
Odivo shalom aleinu, Odivo shalom aleinu, Odivo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Odivo shalom aleinu, Odivo shalom aleinu, Odivo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, salam shalom, salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, salam shalom. Odivo shalom aleinu, Odivo shalom aleinu, Odivo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Odivo shalom aleinu, Odivo shalom aleinu, Odivo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Great Pesach. Nice and easy.